What are some of the creepiest declassified documents made available to the public? Operation Northwoods. Proposed false flag attacks against American civilians/targets carried out by the CIA and blamed on Cuba in 1962. Thankfully JFK said F no and shut that crap down. Apparently, JFK even demoted the guy who proposed this on the spot. Thank God. Also, this means that this idea had to go through a long chain of command with many high-ranking people in the government agreeing to it. Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, was subjected to grueling degrading psychological experiments while he was an underage student at Harvard. At the start of the Cold War, Henry Murray developed a personality profiling test to crack Soviet spies with psychological warfare and select which U.S. spies are ready to be sent out into the field. As part of Project MKUltra, he began experimenting on Harvard sophomores. He set one student as the control, after he proved to be a completely predictable conformist, and named him Lawful. Long story short, the latter half of the experiment involved having the student prepare an essay on his core beliefs as a person for a friendly debate. Instead, Murray had an aggressive interrogator come in and basically tear his beliefs to pieces, mocking everything he stood for, and systematically picking apart every line in the essay to see what it took to get him to react. But he didn't, it just broke him, made him into a mess of a person and left him having to pull his whole life back together again. He graduated, but then turned in his degree only a couple years later, and moved to the woods where he lived for decades. In all that time, he kept writing his essay. And slowly, he became so sure of his beliefs, so convinced that they were right, that he thought that if the nation didn't read it, we would be irreparably lost as a society. So, he set out to make sure that everyone heard what he had to say, and sure enough, Lawful's Industrial Society and Its Future has become one of the most well-known essays written in the last century. In fact, you've probably read some of it. Although, you probably know it better as the Unabomber Manifesto. Think there was a lot of creepy things that came out when the East German Stasi files were released after the Berlin Wall fell. All citizens were allowed to view their own files and many were shocked to find out that their own relatives were informing on them, because they had no choice, and various other things. A good movie about this is called Other People's Lives. Operation Lack Biological Warfare testing done on U.S. cities. Principally, the operation involved spraying large areas with zinc cadmium sulfide, which is very toxic. Many who were affected died of cancer and the testing was never followed up on. Most of the neighborhood's genetic makeup was fucked up for no reason and no apologies were made. Anything involving Japan's Unit 731 during World War II. It was a military chemical and biological warfare division that experimented on POWs. Project Pluto is pretty horrific. The proposed use for nuclear-powered ramjets would be to power a cruise missile, called SLAM, for supersonic low-altitude missile. In order to reach ramjet speed, it would be launched from the ground by a cluster of conventional rocket boosters. Once it reached cruising altitude and was far away from populated areas, the nuclear reactor would be made critical. Since nuclear power gave it almost unlimited range, the missile could cruise in circles over the ocean until ordered down to the deck for its supersonic dash to targets in the Soviet Union. The SLAM, as proposed, would carry a payload of many nuclear weapons to be dropped on multiple targets, making the cruise missile into an unmanned bomber. After delivering all its warheads, the missile could then spend weeks flying over populated areas at low altitudes, causing tremendous ground damage with its shock wave and fallout. When it finally lost enough power to fly, and crash-landed, the engine would have a good chance of spewing deadly radiation for months to come. MKUltra. The CIA performing illegal experiments on Americans to try to develop mind control. MKUltra was never declassified, it was leaked, and the CIA destroyed all documents surrounding it. As all good governments should. Just in case. There is a list somewhere on web of the last words of inmates punished by death in Texas. Here's one I found: I want the victim's family to know that I didn't commit this crime. I didn't kill your loved one. Sharon Wilson, y'all convicted an innocent man and you know it. There are some lawyers hired that is gonna prove that, and I hope you can live with it. To my family and loved ones, I love you. Thank you for supporting me. Y'all stay strong. I don't know that it was classified, but the audio tape recorded by the Toy Box Killer was leaked. David Ray was a U.S. serial killer who tortured, sexually assaulted, and murdered women with electric generators, surgical blades, saws, syringes, etc. He mounted a mirror to the ceiling so they had to watch. He had a recorded audio tape that he would play for victims once they regained consciousness for the first time. The transcript is here. The Toolbox Killers are a separate pair of serial killers who similarly raped, tortured, and killed women. They also made tape recordings of their crimes. Shirley Ledford's tape is the most well-known one. You can hear them telling her to scream, the killers breaking her elbow with a sledgehammer, and her asking to die near the end. During the trial, the killers claimed it was role-playing and only evidence of a threesome. Shirley's mother had to identify her daughter's voice on the tape. The full tape was not released, but the transcript was. Gay bomb. It was a weapon speculated by the USA in the 90s that, when dropped, would release pheromones which would make the enemy attracted to each other. Oh shit. We were just gassed. What did it do? I'm not sure. I feel fine. Also, damn Jack. You look great. Thanks, you too, Dylan. Not really a document, but a case that the Soviet Union tried to hide for a while, the Nezhino affair. Here is part of an eyewitness reported about it. They were trying to escape. They asked us, where's the railway? We'd never seen a railway. They asked, where's Moscow? Leningrad? They were asking the wrong people. We'd never heard of those places. We're Ostayaks. People were running away starving. They were given a handful of flour. They mixed it with water and drank it, and then they immediately got diarrhea. The things we saw. People were dying everywhere. They were killing each other. On the island there was a guard named Kostya Vanikov, a young fellow. He fell in love with a girl who had been sent there and was courting her. He protected her. One day he had to be away for a while, and he told one of his comrades, take care of her, but with all the people there the comrade couldn't do much really. People caught the girl, tied her to a poplar tree, cut off her breasts, her muscles, everything they could eat, everything. They were hungry, they had to eat. When Kostya came back, she was still alive. He tried to save her, but she had lost too much blood. Paradise Papers. Everyone disregards them, but they pretty much call out every single top 0.00001% wealth and super high power elites in the world for being involved with terrorists, child trafficking, money laundering, you name it. If you haven't given them a read, some of your favorite politicians may surprise you. Just to be clear, this isn't people like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. While they have plenty of shady business practices of their own, they're pretty clean compared to the real ultra-rich. People like Saudi princes and Russian oil barons that don't show up on lists of richest people because they're so secretive we don't even know how rich they are. The ultra-rich who associate with cartels and drug/sex trafficking rings mostly stem from countries more third world than the US due to more lax laws and far less investigative power. You don't have to feel bad about buying an iPhone because Tim Cook might be involved in child sex trafficking. The worst that Apple does is use Chinese sweatshop labor, but unfortunately that's pretty much every company. The JFK assassination documents never fully being released as they keep getting pushed back. The documents themselves are creepy in the sense of how contradicting they are. But what makes it truly creepy is the full release keeps getting pushed back. Thanks for watching Team Astro. Consider subscribing if you've loved the video, leave a like and support us. Thank you. Daily fun fact before you leave. Earth has traveled more than 5,000 miles in the past 5 minutes. Whoa. So everyone is basically like the Flash.